name's James Gordon. I'm a detective. What's your name?
My name's Bruce Wayne. A man came out of the shadows.
There is something you can do now. You can be strong. However dark and scary the world might be right now, there will be light. There will be light. Bruce.
This is the Cinema Geekly Gotham podcast with Glenn.
Oh, and I'm Anthony Lewis. Hey, we could not think of a better name, so
No.
we're going with a generic brand podcast name here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, well, I mean, you set the bar so high with Sons Upon a Time that I guess we have to have something that it's a little bit easier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I apologize, by the way, because I'm under the weather, so just fighting some congestion. It was horrible last night, Glenn. I believe I gathered all of maybe an hour and a half of sleep, all told, and then went upstairs and fell asleep for maybe an hour and a half, and woke up and felt like I was never sick whatsoever. Then we had some guys come into our house to do they were cleaning out like our air ducts, right? And they vacuumed out our horrifically dusty air ducts, and after those guys left, I immediately started feeling sick again, and I have just now barely recovered enough to be able to discuss the pilot episode of Gotham, which was on Fox last Monday. Did it have a title, by the way? I really should have done more homework. Did that episode have a title, or was it just pilot?
It's pilot. I mean, anything I've looked into it, it's just pilot.
Okay.
So we came with a bland name for the first episode, just like they did.
Yeah, sure. Hey, one good turn deserves another, I guess. So there, suck it, creators of this television show we're discussing. You want to run us through really quick what kind of happened on the show a little bit? I mean, obviously it's an origin story, I guess, for this series, a pilot, obviously. So there wasn't a lot to it, but there was a little bit. Do you want to run through real quick?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, I mean, it starts off, and you just kind of follow a teenage Catwoman who's stealing things and going on rooftops and doing the Scarlett Johansson Black Widow pose every 3 seconds with the hair flip look up.
Yes.
And apparently she's mute as well, because I think in the first 3 or 4 minutes, I mean, it's just following her, and then we go to the alleyway that becomes the inevitable doom of Thomas and Martha Wayne.
Right.
So she witnesses the death of Bruce's parents, and then from there we go to seeing Gordon at the police station, with this crazy guy who grabs a gun from a cop and is threatening to kill him, and he disarms him without having to use excessive force. I mean, he beats crap out of him, but he doesn't have to use deadly force, I guess is a more accurate term.
Right.
And we get to see his partner Bullock, and from the get-go it's known of him as being a dirty cop, and that's kind of how Gotham is. Anybody who knows about anything about the Batman lore, the cops are crooked.
Yep.
And just from there, we go from his doing the investigation, and kind of throughout we see Gordon interacting with people who are going to become very prominent in Gotham City in one day. You see a younger Riddler who works at the police station, and you come across
he's like a forensic scientist or something.
Yeah. Which is kind of like what he is in the Arkham Origins video game. That's kind of like his origin story is.
Right.
And I think that kind of goes more with the New 52 a little bit as well, which I guess to me makes sense. His narcissistic personality, I guess, kind of goes with that. The one thing I didn't like that they did with him is like I understand that he's the Riddler and I understand that he does riddles. Those are not the only thing. Like he doesn't just speak riddles. Like his big thing is
Right.
puzzles. That's
Right.
like really what he does is puzzles. And so like I liked the first thing he says, and he's like, oh, don't don't ask me with a question, just tell me. But when they kind of went further into it and like what he was gonna say was a riddle, like that, I don't, to me, I did, that was just, I didn't like it. I understand why you have to do it, you want the audience, who probably doesn't know much about him, but once the guy starts reading off riddles and he wears glasses and he's kind of got green shaded clothing,
Right.
oh, association of words, you can pretty much guess who he is.
Sure.
And from there, then you go to the made up character for the show, Fish Mooney, who's trying to become this up and comer crime boss and take over for the Falcones. And the Waynes died on her territory, so Bullock automatically assumes that she would at least know somebody, or at least get him to the right person to talk to.
Right.
And that's where we meet Penguin, who once again younger. He's kind of, I don't want to say he's not her right hand man. He is more like a butler, which
Yeah.
makes sense that she calls him Penguin since he is constantly waiting on her.
Right.
In his black and white tux. So I did like that. And just from there on, it's just you guy who they eventually say they frame for the murder of the Waynes turns out to be Poison Ivy's dad, who in the show is named Ivy,
Right.
where her real name is Pamela Isley. And she's once again a 12-year-old little girl with red hair. And from there we kind of we see beginnings of Bruce trying to conquer fear, or not be afraid, and him wanting vengeance pretty much from the get-go. And
Right.
and before all that, after the Waynes are murdered, you get to have that moment that you've seen in even in the Nolan movies of Gordon, basically putting it, giving him comfort to a young Bruce Wayne
Right.
whose life may have been devastated. But the nicest thing about it was I loved what they did with Pennyworth, and we'll kind of go on after I kind of get done with this quick rundown.
Sure.
And I mean, really, I mean, the episode, I mean, things happened, but it was more of like setting up the stage of where we're gonna go from here. It was pretty vanilla, I would say, as far as a pilot goes, especially something that's focusing on making an origin story. And and we go like Gordon's rite of passage, and seeing we get see how good of a man he really is, and that they want the Falcone family to show his loyalty. They want him to kill the Penguin, because the Penguin is the one who tipped off the cops that it was a frame job uh, on Mooney's half, as far as who they said killed the Waynes.
Right.
And of course, Gordon doesn't kill him. He makes it look like he did, and the Penguin leaves town and murders a man who's fishing.
Right.
So, and we get scenes from the next episode of, obviously Penguin's going to come back. He is a regular on the show, and just kind of dealing more with Gordon. His idealism. It may cost him a lot, as far as his reputation may be discredited because of the fact that he is such a good man. May come out and look worse.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think I really missed anything.
No, no, no. I mean, you covered the highlights.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was the basic story. Was the Waynes were killed, and dirty cop Harvey Bullock went to go investigate, while young rookie, I'm gonna clean this town up, James Gordon type, goes with him. And I mean, because they very clearly do all this sort of, like, while Bullock is talking to Fish Mooney, there's that scene where Gordon goes out back where there's Cobblepot and a bunch of other goons, and some guy they're beating the shit out of with a baseball bat. And they're just like, "Oh, hey, you new in town? You're the new cop? Oh, cool. How do you like the city?" And they're like, he's like, "What's going on here?" And they're they all play along like, "Oh, we're just nothing. We're just goofing around," that sort of thing. Even the guy who's getting the shit kicked out of him is like bloody with teeth missing and kind of gives him this smile with a thumbs up, which I thought
Well,
was
just messing around, man.
right. I thought that was funny. One of the few moments of levity in this episode, but um, yeah, I mean that was basically the whole thing. It's that they find the guy who's the killer. And of course, there's the who are the other people? They're like the DA, or I don't know who they work for. They're some higher uh, crime fighting
Oh, the
organization.
major crimes unit, which is Montoya, and I can't remember the other guy's name. I'm just blanking on. I mean,
Right.
Montoya is, she is in Batman lore, and in some iterations, she eventually becomes the female version of the Question.
Right.
So, I mean, she is important.
And they have Cobblepot coming to them because he wants to take over
Yeah,
Fish Mooney's thing. So he's feeding them information. They find out that it's a frame job.
yeah.
And Gordon, obviously finds out all of this information as well. And then him and his partner are about to be killed, and then they're actually saved by Carmine Falcone. So that sort of thing. And then yeah, like you said, he has to prove his worth or whatever by killing Cobblepot to show that he's one of the crooked cops, I guess, and doesn't. So yeah. Was there anything? Okay, so what stuck out to you the most in the episode? Like
Um,
a performance wise, or just anything? What stuck out to you?
I do like Ben McKenzie as Gordon. To me that makes sense. Like he really does kind of have this earnestness to him. I like just like he looks really trusting, and that
Right.
said be like the best thing to have as Gordon. The other thing for me was at first I was just like whoa, like I was so taken aback, and not in a bad way. Uh, was was Pennyworth, how they did Alfred. He's so much way different than anything Pennyworth has ever been portrayed. He's always kind of a mild mannered man who, he'll speak his mind, and he'll be a little snarky towards Bruce or whatever, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day,
He
like
he
he
was
knows his place. And
he
this one, I
was
mean, he was like he's very protective and
yeah. Alfred
very like
is. I was gonna say
kind
Alfred
of
has
a
always kind of
badass.
been the very soft spoken, stereotypical British butler, I guess. Really,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, like soft spoken, but like, soft spoken and supportive, and definitely like you can tell like, that's where he gets his morals from. And this, like, not that he wouldn't get his morals from Bruce, because there are times where, even just something as subtle when they're walking away from the crime scene, Pennyworth is saying to him, keep your chin up, don't cry, like,
Right.
you have to show people you're strong. And you go on, into the future of, what, Bruce Wayne ultimately becomes. Like, that's
Yeah.
definitely a persona he uses, is
He
not to show pain.
yeah.
So,
He feels very much like a more of like a stiff upper lip type
yeah,
British guy.
even like whenever Bruce is standing on top of the building, and people, it's supposed to look like, oh, maybe he'll kill himself, when he's just trying to get over maybe fear of heights, or just exposure, and he just walks out and he basically says, like, get your bloody ass off that roof, boy. And it's just, you never really heard Alfred just address him
No,
and he was just uh
but
and
he's
to
but
me
he's
that
got
was
to be
refreshing.
right, right, and he's got to be. He's got to be. I
Yeah,
mean, he's got to
I
be
mean,
his
he's gonna
dad,
raise them.
essentially, right? Yeah,
Yeah, and that was, to me, that was like the most refreshing thing. And I really, as much as I don't like the fact that they're gonna, that Bruce Wayne is a main character in this. I've talked about it with my friend, and to me, and I think maybe as the show goes on, maybe they'll kind of get away from it. They just kind of got to use, that Bruce Wayne crutch for a little bit. Tell people, I don't need to care about that little kid.
right.
I want to care about what Gordon's doing. Because my thing is, I wish if they were gonna do something like this, like it wouldn't always, like everything always has to start. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen or read, Thomas and Martha Wayne getting shot in the face
Right,
and
only so many
murdered with
times. Right,
pearls.
right,
It's like the Batmobile. There's just, those are the two things that anybody who gets to write a comic or something, they get to, they got to write that scene. They got to show what they think that scene looks like.
right,
But it was, I mean, I wish he was a little bit older. And I was mentioning to him, like, maybe like 16, and he would pop in every once in a while, like, 3 or 4 times a season,
Right.
maybe. And it was like, he got a DUI, and that's kind of like him and Gordon kind of have this talk, and it's like, oh, what are you doing? And you realize that him getting drunk and look like he got in a fight is like a cover up for maybe him trying to beat up some people and that kind of thing.
Sure.
So I just, to me, and that was the other thing too, like, and I mentioned it with the nice thing about the Nolan movies was the fact that like Bruce Wayne was kind of a little shit, like, even up
A little bit.
into his 20s, up, to when had a gun, he was gonna fucking kill the guy who killed his parents,
Right.
and he even discredited a lot of and discarded people's opinions because he was a little high and mighty, and it took a guy in a fucking gangsters lounge to tell him what life really is
Right.
for him to kind of see where he may not know a lot of stuff and he need to experience it. So yeah, I mean it was, like I mentioned before, a pretty vanilla pilot. um there are things I did really enjoy, like I said, with the Pennyworth, and I did like the dynamic of Bullock and Gordon together. Hopefully the show does that. We don't waste 15 minutes an episode of Gordon with little kid Bruce Wayne, or little kid Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle, which, I mean, she's going to become an important part because the next episode is called Selena Kyle. So
Right.
I'm going to guess she has a pretty big part in it.
Yeah.
Uh, um, and it's weird because I have mixed feelings about this too, is like with the Wayne family death is, they've always mentioned it, as like it was a big moment in the city, but you never really see it.
Right.
And in this, it was kind of nice to see, like, oh, this would be, you're talking about the richest family, most powerful family in the city
Right.
getting killed, just a mugging, and that would be, think about it, that'd be like really surreal. That'd be like,
Sure. Yeah.
I guess for like Detroit, if Tom Gore walked, he was coming back from the movie theater and Tom Gore got killed, or the Ford family, like that would just be like,
Sure.
holy crap, like what the hell?
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
that would in fact send some shockwaves. Sure. Or like Bill and Melinda Gates. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
Uh, you- and that's probably more apt as well, I guess. As I would consider them closer akin to the Waynes than maybe the Ford family at this point in time. But um, you know what? I felt. I mean, I don't know where your bar was for this episode. Mine was, it wasn't high. It wasn't low either. But I don't know. I felt, I guess, a little let down by the episode because they did a few things that I just personally, some things that I don't care for. The big thing that they did was the I call them like the O moments, like and they did a bunch of them, like, oh, that's Catwoman, oh, that's Poison Ivy, like they introduced like
yeah,
every
yes,
major character, and I mean, with the exception of a few, of course, but they just one after the other, and um I'm like, you really only need like one big landmark thing from Batman lore in your first episode, and that's Bruce Wayne's parents being killed. I thought that was landmark enough. I didn't think we needed all of the other character cameos, with the exception of the Penguin, which it's very clear that character is going to be playing a big role in the series because they
and
obviously.
I think he's gonna be awesome.
Oh yeah, yeah, he
I
was great.
love the guy who plays him.
Um,
He may be a little too tall, but
Perhaps.
the big thing with the Penguin is he just has this raw tenacity, and it's just, you could just see it, that that moment he's beating the
Right.
crap out of the guy with the bat, and he's just loving it.
Yeah, I mean, he's
And
gonna he's gonna make people forget about the Danny DeVito Penguin,
yeah,
very,
yeah,
very quickly. I mean, I already half forgot about it, just from that episode because he was very good, and I think it's gonna go in an interesting direction with him for sure. The other thing that I noticed, that it wasn't a like or a dislike. I was just I got the vibe that it was gonna be very Nolan esque in the way that everything looked and felt, but um, to me, it didn't feel as Nolan-esque as it felt more like film noir, like
yes, and I like that.
a lot of the lighting and the locations and everything they did, just everything felt very film noir. Just old murder mystery type feel to everything. which lent itself really well, I think, to how the show looked and everything. It didn't look very Nolan-esque, and parts of it did, sure, but most of it didn't feel that way at all. Sometimes that bled through negatively because I felt like there were moments where, because that was my other thing. It felt like a lot of the performance was uneven. Sometimes, like it felt like there were times where, like film noir type talk bled through too heavily, and sometimes everything felt great, but yeah, you know what I mean. Just every once in a while, it felt like ooh cheesy dialogue, or
Oh,
you know,
especially Jada Pinkett Smith.
yeah.
I mean,
Sometimes Harvey Bullock as well. Sometimes spit out a few things like that, which is
yeah,
weird because
see, I
you'd
say that, but I love Donald Logue, so it's hard for me to say anything negative about the guy.
right. I mean, you know, and I would have thought there would have been more of that from the, you know, I'm the good cop, Jim Gordon character. I thought there would have been far more cheesy stuff from him, but yeah, I thought he was fine. I think he's going to be pretty good. There wasn't any like bad performances. I thought Jada Pinkett Smith was better than I thought she was going to be.
Yeah,
She wasn't a standout. I really liked. I wish I knew the name of the actor, but I really liked the guy who played Carmine Falcone. I thought he was good.
it's funny you mentioned that because there was one thing that stood out to me in this. I think all in all there was four people that were in this pilot that were in The Wire, and
Right,
the guy who plays Carmine Falcone is one of those people, and he plays the major over the homicide division, and
right.
he's not like a bad, he's not a crooked cop, he is a good cop, but he is very political. And so for me, like
Ah,
seeing him be a Carmine, and he's given that speech about, oh, I care about this city, and
right,
yeah, he may do some shitty things, but deep down, he feels like he is doing what he thinks is best for the city.
right.
But he will definitely take his piece of the pie to do what is best for that city.
Oh, sure, yeah.
um and
Part
that,
of
and to me, like that also, I mean, that's uh a very, I mean, that's the foundation of a lot of the conflicts that happens in some of the Batman comics, is like the older, mob people dealing with all these new costume supervillains that show up. And,
sure,
like they always, oh, we did things the right way. And you could say that with anything. I mean, you look at something like American Gangster, or anything that deals with gangs that aren't,
right,
that aren't from Italy. Like they just, view other gangs as not doing things a respectful way,
yeah,
and that, like some type of prejudice. And that was, and to me, like when he's given that speech, I can already see, like when they start throwing in some of these costume supervillains in the show, like how will the families react? Because that's always been the coolest thing about it, is all these different rival families trying to gather up ground and take over Gotham. I mean, that was the big thing of, even something like the Arkham City video game, was all these territories and people trying to expand their territory. That's always what Gotham is about. It's about who can get this territory. And yeah, there's some guy in a Batman costume, and he'll be a nuisance, but he won't always be after me. We can get him to go after the competition. So they kind of, in a way, they try and use him as a pawn on their own chessboard,
right.
against one another. So I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of things I did like. I am hopeful for the show, but like I said, it was a very vanilla pilot. And I don't like to judge things on the pilot. I try to give a show at least 6 7 episodes before I just call it quits.
Sure,
And with this, like I know I won't call it quits just because like I will want to see more,
right,
but I hope as the show goes along and as it becomes more successful, they will go away from having to use, this crutch of Bruce Wayne or his supervillains, or the fact that they keep saying, "Oh yeah, there's going to be hints of who the Joker is every episode."
right.
And I mean, if it's really the stupid, that comedian guy in the lounge, like, I'm sorry, but that's just dumb.
I didn't even really think of that.
I mean, that's one of his stories, is him being a failure stand-up comedian, and
Comedian,
that's when he
right,
becomes the Red Hood. And I don't like that, mainly because all these villains are going to be, when Bruce Wayne comes around at like 28 or something, I mean, I'm sure with this show or whatever, however their timeline would be, I'm sure he would do it much younger. Maybe not 28, but like 25.
Sure.
These guys are going to be their mid to late 30s when he starts showing up. So you're talking about these guys are going to be like, even if they're fighting for 7 years, he's going to be what, 33, and they're going to be 45, and
Right.
his arch nemesis is the Joker, and he's a guy who's going to be like 45 instead of maybe a few years older than him in his 30s,
Right.
and they're prime going and they're back and forth, and that to me that just bothers me a little bit. Like I mean, it's even a little weird that Selena is at least 2 years older than him.
Right.
uh just,
I find that acceptable at least. Like I'm
yeah, I
okay
mean,
with
at least she's
that.
in his age group.
Right.
Um, like I don't even know if like they're talking with forensics, Riddler. That's fine if he's older. That makes sense. But
Right.
in the Penguin, he should be older. He is
Right.
older.
Right.
But I hope that some of these other people they'll at least make them contemporaries. Like I know they said Harvey Dent's gonna be in the show. Like
Hmm.
Harvey Dent and Bruce Wayne are the same age. Like that guy better be some middling little kid like running for student council at high school or at the
Right.
junior high or something.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I love the creator of the show, Bruno Heller. I mean, he wrote The Mentalist, which I dog on CBS a lot, but as far as procedurals go, The Mentalist I think is one of the better ones. It's just it's a little different way of doing one. There actually is some carryover with a character, and uh, I mean, it's a property I care about as far as the Gotham goes, so I'll definitely
Right.
stick to it. But it was um the definitely room for improvement and a little hopeful. I am hopeful that they'll once they I think there's going to be 15 episodes this season,
Hmm.
which is great for me. Like I I'm glad it's not like 22, 23 because things just get stretched out.
Right.
I love the
Well,
cable way of the
you,
things. I
you
love
can.
12, 13 episode
I,
storylines. I
I
am
think.
happy with that.
I think you can bet though that if it does
Oh
really
yeah,
well, um, and
they'll do a
I
full
think the first episode did about 8 million viewers.
That's not
Um,
bad. I mean,
uh,
it was at the same time as Big Bang Theory. Like, holy crap, they were.
right, and Big
Oof.
Bang Theory always does big numbers. Yeah, I mean, if it gets renewed for a second season, it's going to be the full 22, 24
Yeah.
episode probably. But um, yeah, the other thing I noticed is I wonder if this is going to be a recurring thing that they have as well, which is the I guess I don't even know why they need to do this because it's how many people watching this show don't realize that Bruce Wayne is going to become Batman someday, but they definitely do like I'm going to be Batman someday tease at
Oh
the end,
yeah.
right when Gordon visits them and he's like, Bruce, I want to tell you that the guy that everybody thought killed your parents wasn't. He was framed, and Bruce is like, no, that's fine, that's good. I want him to be alive. I want to see him again someday. That sort of thing. So I wonder if that's going to be a continuing thing. That here's your weekly reminder that Bruce Wayne's going to be Batman someday. Um, I
I
think.
hope they get away from that. Like,
Oh,
I
I
think.
think they have to because very few people are going to actually not know about the lore of the. I mean, even very lay type viewers or people that are just casually aware of Batman pretty much know the basics at this point. Like,
Yeah.
it's like they don't have to keep saying, "Oh, he's going to be Batman someday," and here's another hint to that. He's going to say something that is going to remind you that he's the character that you already know he is. Um, so hopefully they get away from that pretty quickly. And in fact, I would be happy if they just that was it, and there are no more references to it because people get it already.
Yeah, like now it's what I was saying, like the kind of cool thing, like I don't know, if with Catwoman being there, maybe like she's kind of a shoulder that he can lean on, which is it's
Yeah.
not anything different than what's in the comics. I hope that it's not constantly let's show Bruce Wayne. Oh man, he's getting really good at karate now. Like,
Right.
I don't want, like you said, weekly reminders. I don't want, let's see how far along he is to becoming Batman, because at this rate he's gonna be Batman at like
Right.
15.
Right.
I would rather it be if it, like I said, a couple of times a season, if they had him and it was kind of like, oh, this is what he's up to.
Right.
Because
Well, I mean,
he
even if they have him like every episode, he gets like a thing. Even if they do that, they don't have to focus on him becoming Batman at all. They can just focus on
Him being
what
at school.
what it's like for Bruce Wayne, young Bruce Wayne, to be dealing with the death of his parents. And you can probably explore some of those "why I became Batman"
Yeah.
things without ever really, referring directly to things that are going to happen into the future.
It's like
Uh,
Cody always says. He always said, he talks about Bruce Wayne has like the Jesus factor. Like he,
right,
you see him when he's a little kid, and then you don't see him again until he's 27. Like there's a lot of story that you could tell in there. It's just your
yeah,
goal shouldn't be setting up. Oh, this is what the end game is, so we need to set it up to this. Like, no, why can't he just
right,
live a life in between then? And yeah, there are things that are going to lead him to for him to be Batman, but he's going to be like any other normal kid. He's going to have girlfriends, and I mean, he'll have shit tons of cash and probably do some ridiculous vacations, but
right.
at the same time, like he'll have a life to live. And I mean, one of the things that always sticks out to me is the video game trailer that's like 30 seconds long that they did for Arkham Origins, and it shows like Bruce standing there, and then like you see Pearl's falling, his parents get shot, and then it's like him getting beat up at school, and then him getting beat up while training, and then him getting punched in the face by Bane.
Right.
And it's probably like the most powerful thing, like summarizes him in the matter of like 30 seconds.
Right.
And like I want to see those things of him like in school. I like the idea of Bruce Wayne getting bullied.
Sure.
His,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a I want to say it's a it's not, I don't think it's Faulkner, but it's somewhere, someone like that kind of poet back in the day, at the turn of the century, who tells a story about a rich man who lives on a hill, and he's this rich man. Everyone like, oh, he's just stuck up, and the thing is like this super rich guy, all he wants to be is a knight, and he can't be a knight because it's not the 1600s anymore. And
Right.
that's like you can deal with that, like you see Bruce Wayne, like he's this rich guy, but no one can relate or talk to him because I don't have anything to say to this guy. Like he's Bruce Wayne. He's got rich. Who cares if his parents died?
Right.
That kind of thing. So I mean, and then again, that could be where you get the Selena Kyle, where you get this person who doesn't care about that. She's not intimidated or whatever, and that would be his connection. Also, one of the things I would wish they hopefully introduce is Tommy Elliott, his childhood best friend, who also becomes a bad guy later on. But little things like that. I mean, you could definitely. I think if like you were saying, if they give him something every episode, I hope it is just everyday mundane normal things that he would be doing in school or at home, or just him and Alfred cooking eggs, like just him being a regular person and just
Doing
seeing
the twist.
where that
Yeah.
goes. Yeah, just seeing where that goes from there. You don't have to force me the fact that he wants bloody vengeance and all that kind of stuff. Like I know and I get that. I see that. I see the pain that he has when he's older.
Yeah.
But
He'll
I
get
want to
to
see
that.
how that pain manifests as a kid. Like it could have all been doom and gloom. I mean,
Right.
like I said, he
Right. That's where you got to tell the stories at. That's where
yeah.
the least amount of content. That's like the largest void of content. That's where it exists in the Batman universe, and they should really focus on that. The other thing before we get going, because I think we wanted to keep this under an hour,
Yeah, yeah.
and maybe even closer to a half hour. I think we're a little over a half an hour, but we're like 31 minutes. But um, the big question, obviously, is the one that hounded Agents of Shield as well for the majority of its first season, which is you've got the a lot of the casual viewers out there watching a show called Gotham. How long before do you think it will be a problem that it's going to be a show called Gotham, but they're not going to see Batman? Or do you think
No,
or do you think it'll work like um, the Superman show, whose name I can't remember, where he
Smallville.
Smallville, which was on for 800 years, and I think he was Superman for all of 25 seconds or something in that show.
Well,
Um,
the thing that works for Gotham, and like something that it's always like the weirdest thing about the Batman universe, and I don't understand how. I mean, I guess the only other thing I could say it's contemporary, and the fact that you can expand on non-essential characters is like the X-Men universe. is you have a lot of these interesting characters,
Right.
and some of them have powers, some of them have kooky costumes, but at the end of the day, they all really have like an interesting background. I mean, Jim Gordon he's Commissioner Gordon, and then, like, there's something cool about this, like, this man who came up through this system and became commissioner against, like,
Right.
the city's backing and every single freaking crime lord wanting his head on a platter every Thanksgiving. Seeing how this man made it to that. And that's like, that's, I think with Gotham, it's always been more than any other story. Like, the city has always been just as important to the story than than the characters, or it is one of the characters. Gotham is hell. I mean, it's it's home to the richest man in the world, and home to, like, the highest crime rate and poverty in the country.
Right.
There's just something really ironic about that. And people generally in drama, they like to see pain, and Gotham's all about pain.
Right.
So, I mean, the city can just it doesn't before there were these crazy costume supervillains, there were these mobsters. Before there were these mobsters, there were other people,
Right.
and so on and so forth. Like, that's
So you're looking at it from a glass half full perspective.
yeah,
I'm
definitely.
I'm I'm going to look at it from the half empty perspective, and I'm
I mean,
almost
like you said,
positive.
Smallville was on for 10 years, and
Right.
what I saw of Smallville was not that interesting.
Right. Well, see, I mean, well, I'm just from my own. I'm not trying to look at this from my perspective because I'm with you. I just want a good story. I'm interested in the story of what are essentially minor characters compared to Batman. Because Batman, of course, is like the main character in Batman, obviously. And Jim Gordon is essentially, I guess, an accessory to Batman. Obviously, he plays a big role and everything, but
Yeah.
you ask the normal person, like, where does Jim Gordon rank to you when ranking Batman characters? It's he's maybe he might crack the top 5 or something, but usually it's going to be Batman, and then Alfred and the Joker and stuff like that are going to be up there first. So
Yeah, Robin, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I'm just gonna look at it from the pessimistic point of view of I think that there's gonna be a lot of people out there that are gonna be like, look, I don't want to watch a TV show about Jim Gordon putting Catwoman on a timeout in a corner because she's 12. I want to see Batman punching Joker in the face, and that's the TV show I want to watch every week. I don't.
Well, then
I mean,
then they should have
obviously,
sold these rights to CBS
right. Well, I mean,
if they
obviously,
wanted that show.
obviously, Smallville. I don't want to compare these two shows because they're very different shows, clearly in tone and style and pretty much every way. But in one way, they are exactly alike, which is it's the story of Superman, but without him ever being Superman. Like, this is how Superman grew up, which is what Gotham is supposed to be about Jim Gordon, but it's probably going to morph into this is how Bruce Wayne grew up
Yeah.
because you can't have the show not be about Batman at some point. Do you think that they're going to jump years at some point? Like they're going to at some point
Like Mad Men, what we've talked about, like the Mad Men style.
right? There's going to be some sort of like year gap. Well, I mean, they did it in Battlestar Galactica once as well. I think they came back from a season and it's like 2 years later, and we're like, what? Like 2 years have passed since the last season, and it's almost like you have to catch up on a new show because things have happened that you didn't see that you get filled in on. But do you think that that's going to happen? Do you think they're gonna age up some of the characters so this way we're not doing 8 seasons of Bruce Wayne and we end on Bruce Wayne as a 16 or 18-year-old or whatever?
I kind of hope they jump a little bit. I would, if they did, like, let's say, and I always, I'd say, like, a show should be on for 7 seasons, no more or no less. If it's a good show,
Right.
7 seasons, that should be it.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you're just gonna start doing the same old crap.
Hear that, Simpsons?
Well, I mean, I think animated's a little bit different. You always say anime can get away with a lot more. I think last night's episode of South Park proved that. But
Sure.
it's if they did 7 years and he's 12 and at night, and so let's say the show ends and he's at 19.
Right.
I mean, if they did two time jumps, like season 3 and like season 6, they did 2 years, 2 year gaps, after those seasons.
Right. They could end
Uh,
on him becoming Batman.
yeah, he could be 23 and the last season could be him like kicking ass and starting to do vigilante stuff. I would be
Right.
fine with that. And I think a lot of people would be fine with it. I think the problem with Smallville was the fact it was 10 years and it was like it's him becoming Superman. And so like you're thinking, okay, well, he's eventually going to become Superman. But at the that was the only thing you were looking forward to. The only thing you're looking forward to is you want to see Superman become Superman.
Right.
And with this show, like, they've said it's about Gordon. And yeah, Bruce, like you said, he'll probably be put in the front seat, several times in the seasons or whatever. But at least they've said that's not what this show is about. His parents' death is just a catalyst for a lot of other things.
Sure.
So, I mean, like I said, if people want that show, then they should sold the rights to CBS. I mean, that's definitely what they should have done if they wanted a Batman TV show, because I'm sure CBS would gladly just do that because they're all about pleasing audiences and having super high ratings. But when award season comes around, they got garbage content. So, I
Right.
mean, if you only care about money, whatever. I mean, just think about Breaking Bad. Like, I mean, it took like 5 seasons for us to like really see Walt, become what we were promised he was going to be from the beginning of the show.
Right.
And even that was, technically a span of like 7 seasons, just because of how many times they took a break. So I mean, I'm fine. I mean, if like I said, if they did some kind of, I mean, maybe not like Mad Men, like do a fucking 6 month gap in between episodes, or a 2 year. No, I think they did a 2 year gap in between episodes. I think they actually did that, or a year and a half. Like I don't want that
Right.
mid season, but if they broke it, in between seasons, if it ended like on this really high note and the dust kind of settles, and then 2 years later something comes up, I would be fine with that. Yeah, I think you could kind of jumpstart a couple of people and get in the place of where they need to be, and not feel like we've missed a whole bunch of what's happened.
Sure.
So,
Okay. Do you want to drop a Cinema Geekly style rating on this episode?
um, I I want to say like 3.5. Like it wasn't terrible.
Mhm.
Like I said, it's a pilot. I don't think I've, outside of like Breaking Bad, and I'm gonna sound like a freaking hipster, like The Wire. I've never really seen a pilot just blew out, and like blew my mind. I mean, hell, if I was gonna rate this, Firefly pilot, I'd give it like 0 geeky glasses because it was terrible.
Right.
But
No, I hear you.
so yeah, what would you give it? I mean, like I said, like 3.5. Like to me, it's very middle of the road. It wasn't. There were nice things to take away from of where you can see where they're going, and then there was a lot of ham fisting and trying to get those, like you said. Oh,
Right.
I know who that guy is. Moments.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it 3. I think. It's basically it just acted as the episode for me anyway. It's the episode of like, okay, well, I understand you've got to do this episode, so let's get this episode out of the way
Yeah.
and see where we go from here. We have to do Bruce Wayne's parents' death. We have to introduce some of the characters. We have to introduce some of the antagonists. I didn't think they were going to introduce so many of them so quickly.
Yes.
I mean, they weren't in antagonistic roles, obviously. Uh,
Besides Penguin.
of course. But I know they're going to end up being
Yeah.
antagonists. So so that aside, I thought they went a little overboard there. But other than that, I mean, it was what it was. It was like the episode they have to do so they can do the second episode,
Yes.
which
So they can get a series greenlit.
right. Okay, so that's the episode. We managed to keep it under an hour, so that's a plus. cinemageekly.com/premium is where you can hear this and other just wacky, crazy Cinema Geekly podcasters. hopefully going to be a flood of them showing up within the next couple of days.
I feel like there's going to be a flood of them showing up at least in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, for sure. Just a crazy amount of shows are happening and going on. I've got to try to find a way to talk about 3 other episodes of TV, and I've got something in the works to maybe do like a video game centric podcast as well, where it's
cool.
just all video game talking. So hopefully we're going to try to get all of that cobbled together, I guess, as best as we can. Potted together. See how I just swung all the way back around to the topic? Yeah, that's a real Cinema Geekly quality segue there for sure. Good Lord. All right, so for Glenn Bove, I'm Anthony Lewis, and we're going to be back next week talking, I believe, episode 2 is entitled Selena Kyle, right? That's what it's called,
Yeah,
right?
that's the name of the title.
All right, on the
I wonder what it's going to be about.
on the well, apparently it has something to do with Selena Kyle being involved in sex trafficking. At least that's what I've gathered from the short teaser that I saw.
That makes sense.
So yeah, she may be caught up in that, and that's how Jim Gordon meets her for the first time. And probably Bruce Wayne, and who knows? So we may meet Mr. Freeze. Who knows who we're going to meet in the next episode?
I know he's going to be in the series because I know like Mr. Freeze, Scarecrow, Hugo Strange, which I think you're going to meet in the Arkham episode, which is episode 4.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely they're throwing in, which those guys make sense because they're older and, you know, Scarecrow and that kind of stuff, like where he works at, and so we'll see.
Yep, we're gonna be right back with you next week on the excitedly named Cinema Geekly Gotham podcast.
Cinema Geekly is free. That's nice, isn't it? But can you imagine how warm and squishy you'd feel inside if you flipped them $1 a month, just $12 a year to help them bring you more? Sure, you can imagine it. It'd be like when you saw baby Groot doing his little boogie at the end of Guardians, or like when you saw Harry Potter's parents smiling at him in that mirror, or when that little twat Joffrey got all peanut allergy in Thrones, or like when Mal Reynolds kicks that bad guy into Serenity's engine in Taking Firefly. See? Heartwarming moments. You can make your own. All you need to do is head over to patreon.com/cinemageekly, and it takes less than 20 seconds to get the warm fuzziness. You'll get something in return for your hard-earned cash, from extra episodes and special series like Flip for Side B and Who Made Who, to t-shirts that make you look like you're into fisting. There's something extra for all of you. We can't promise that we'll give our American friends impeccable British accents like mine, or that they'll stay on topic or not say fuck quite as much, but you'll at least be able to hear their potty mouths in gloriously beautiful quality. So come on, give them your fucking money, or I'll have Michael Bay come to your house and explain the artistic depths of Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen to you until you puke.